This is food. This is beans. But I'll just throw it to you. What did you think of Severance season 2? We've been raving about it pretty much every week.
Yes.
Like week to week, but we just been talking about it in broad strokes. So
yeah, I loved it. I thought this was a remarkable season of television. Picks right up where the first season ends. And I had the luxury of watching Severance season 1 like a month before season 2 came. I never watched it upon original release. I watched, I think, the first 2 or 3 episodes, and for whatever reason, I just didn't keep up with it. And then I went back to it with my fiance, watched the first season, and then again, got super excited for season 2, watched season 2 week to week. And yeah, this show is remarkable, man. I think from the acting to the production value to the cinematography, to the directing, to the writing, everything about it is genuinely remarkable. And I think what stands out the most is how, I think I talked about this a few episodes back, but how a lot of shows, Lost is, I think, a prime example of this, where you start watching it and you just get mystery after mystery after mystery thrown at you with nothing getting solved as the show is kind of unfolding. With Severance, it continues to throw more and more mysteries at you, but they're not worried about, or they're not shying away from giving you answers to those mysteries that were given to you maybe 3-4 episodes ago or from the season prior, while continuing to kind of roll and give you like this cycle, like this, I don't want to say mystery box, because I think J.J. Abrams always uses the mystery box. Make a mystery, you don't even know what the fuck's in there. And you can go from there. But this feels like it's kind of planned in a weird way, because everything that I wanted answers to, there's still a bunch of questions to be answered at the end of this season. But a lot that was given to us or shown to us in the first season or in the first half of this season were answered and provided extra context to it. And I loved it, man. That's kind of my high level thoughts on it. What do you think about the season as a whole? Is there anything that you disliked about it? What do you love about it?
I will say, like, it's interesting on like a viewership perspective. This is Apple TV Plus's #1 show ever, which is interesting. Like, so far, even beating out Ted Lasso, from my understanding. I read something like, I'm reading here, Severance logged an impressive 5. This is from Deadline, like the publication Deadline. Severance logged impressive 589 million minutes viewed in the US over all existing episodes, which is crazy. That was as of February 20. That was as of February 19th though. So there was still a ways to go. But it's just crazy. Like, it's cool that that's happening, because it's their most expensive show ever. Severance was just renewed as well for season 3, which is huge as well, which is cool. Here's what I'll say about season 2. I don't think it was as tight as season 1. The budget was higher, the production values were higher, the cinematography, they took bigger risks. Like specifically, like the director of photography, her name is Jessica Lee Gagne, who actually she directed an episode.
Yeah, it was episode 7. Chikai Bardo, I believe, is the name of the episode. I might be pronouncing that wrong.
It makes sense that she directed that one too, because it's the cinematography takes a twist, takes a bit of a turn in the way that it's shot. It's really cool, and so she did a great job there. I think the cinematography makes bolder choices. I can see where some of their budget went this season, because they shot in some interesting places too. Surprisingly, they did some great stuff. The cinematography, even from the first season, or even the way it's shot, and the winter setting of Severance is really excellent. I just love that. There's something about there's almost it's a cozy feeling that I can't explain. I don't know what it is. It's really cool. It's like they're always cozy in like this. You don't think so? It's like that idea of like winter has this cozy feel for me in general. Living in Canada, I just get that feeling. I don't like the cold typically, but the snow always covering the various areas. There's this idea of like these plowed parking lots as well. That shot is always like really interesting to me with the drone shot of the parking lot of Lumen as an example, like the big corporation in the show. For those who don't know, I mean, how do you not know by this point? I feel like just because Severance is so renowned at this point, but it's definitely worth mentioning. Severance is about people who go to an office space and their mind is basically severed with a little chip that goes inside, where you live your life and your life memories and your work memories are separated, and you cannot remember from either side. And the coolest thing about the show, I feel like, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, is they ask a lot of questions and they try to answer them of the actual. But you mentioned they're asking questions and answering them like Lost maybe didn't, and that they stretched it out for Lost. My thing is that they ask a lot of what if scenarios about what if that could happen. What if you could not remember your work so you could truly kind of get home and relax because you're not thinking about work. There's no way you're going to get a phone call from work theoretically because you actually that's not necessarily true actually with this show actually in some way because you have to show up to work. But regardless of that, that aspect is interesting because they ask like what if this could happen? What if you were truly separated? Would you potentially love somebody at work? Could you what would happen if you don't show up to work? What if there's so many elements there that are really interesting. What if do you wonder about the outside world? What could happen if you just you wouldn't even know on the outside? Would you wonder what was on the inside? And what would be the stigma of people who thought of you doing this procedure in the first place? That there's so many questions.
What is the ethics behind all of this? Like
the ethics for sure. That's a good question. Why would a company really want to do it? What is the ulterior motive? Like, are they doing it because they're trying to do it for a good reason? It seems like most companies typically in the world, corporations, don't necessarily do things that are outside of just doing it for the bottom line. So is that something that they would be doing ethically and treating their employees with respect? That's kind of the question. What happens on the inside and what happens on the outside for the innies and the outies, as an example. So I feel like they did a great job at that. And honestly, they also philosophically asked the question of who are we as human beings in a way? On a philosophical standpoint, aren't we just our memories? And that's what's so scary about, as you mentioned before, about what is it called? The Father? It's The Father, right? With Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, the dementia.
Nominated for Best Picture against Nomadland, and Nomadland won. But that I didn't watch that because dementia, to me, the scariest of diseases, just because it kind of is who you are, and you forgetting who you are. Who are you then at that point? And so somebody who gets that, it's very scary and very sad, and like it's a big struggle. Actually, a show that dealt with that recently too was the show with Ted Danson. What's that show called? Inside Man.
Man on the Inside.
Man on the Inside. Yeah, right. Which I really liked, but it is quite sad because it's dealing with that specific subject matter, which is interesting. But yeah, aren't we our memories is kind of and like the other thing that's amazing too. The composer is so good, like it's so on point. Theodore Shapiro, so good, and the acting is so good, and the situations they find themselves in are so good, and the wackiness of the plot in some aspect as well. And I don't know, it's just so good. Adam Scott is basically the lead.
Yes, yeah,
really
I think. No, I agree completely, and I think. Honestly, I think the entire cast is phenomenal. Like they all kind of fall into their roles. And
I think it's good direction too.
Yeah, 100%. Ben Stiller directed multiple episodes. He directed the finale of season 2, which is holy shit, like one of the blew my mind. But I think it's interesting because you mentioned like this show is very wacky and like characters do really weird things. But there's also some of the most human responses to situations that are occurring with some of the characters, and just very real reactions to what is happening. Just like literally lines just being like, "What the fuck?" Like when something wacky is occurring. So it's like some people are in on the joke where other people's are kind of on the outside looking in, and I think it really balances weirdness in a way that is not weird for weird's sake, but intriguing and interesting. And again, it adds to the mystery element of the show as well.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry. Yeah. So, the other things that it dives into and asks the question about is how the science work of it too, which is really cool. Yeah. But yeah. Whoa. Hey, have I lost you? Adrian? Where did you go? Hello?
Sorry, Simon. I don't know why my door's not closing. I'm trying to close this door, but it's just not closing.
It's a haunted door.
Yeah, it's haunted, Simon.
You have a ghost. You just moved in. Maybe there was a murder in your house.
Okay, we're good. We're good. I apologize about that.
It's all right.
It's throwing me off.
But yeah, but yeah. Anyway, I do. I love it. The cast is incredible. I think they just did such a good job, and the cast is just like there's a lot of credits behind some of the cast's name, like John Turturro and Patricia Arquette and Christopher Walken are big hitters. Like they've been around for a long time.
Closet,
and they do a great job. So that's excellent. Here's what I'll say though: this season less tight. I said this already. I feel like this season I don't know. I think it feels like they ran out of time. It feels like they ran out of budget. It feels like they don't build the world in the ways that they should have and they feel like there's missing episodes. Like legitimately, I feel like there's like 2 episodes missing. And I don't know. Interesting. Like specifically episode 9, very confused as to what they were trying to do here. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. The last episode's excellent. I love it. It's one of the best episodes of TV maybe ever made. I will say though, the way it ends as a season, not good. On a TV show, you're making a TV show. You gotta do a little better on how you end a TV show, especially when you seem to be taking 3-year gaps. I don't appreciate that, especially the way it ends. We'll get to it. I don't love it. It feels like they ended it in a place that they maybe they could have been a bit more careful in that they're making a TV show. That's kind of my thought process.
I kind of get where you're coming from because when the show finished, my fiance was a little relieved where it ended, where she's like, I'm glad that it ended here because if we watched season 1 when it came out and we would have had to wait 3 years from that ending, it would have been excruciating. She's like, right now I can kind of wait for what's to come.
I actually disagree. I found the first season's ending it was a better cliffhanger. Actually, I think this is a worse cliffhanger.
No, that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. Yeah, like
I thought you were saying that I thought you were saying that it would be more excruciating if she had to wait after season 1 versus after season 2. I think it's excruciating to wait after season 2. So that's what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, no, she thinks it would have been excruciating for season 1 because that cliffhanger is so good. And then you're like, oh man, now I got to wait 3 years for the next season. Whereas this one, the cliffhanger is again not as good. It finished awesome. I really liked it. But it's not as
your perspective of a good cliffhanger. I don't think cliffhangers are good. I don't like cliffhangers. Enough. I think cliffhangers shouldn't really. I guess you're right. Like you're hanging from the cliff. How far is the cliff down? Like you're looking down. It's like, whoa, this is a long cliffhanger. I'm really holding on because it's a very big cliff. I guess so. That's a better cliffhanger. But I'm more like cliffhangers are bad for the audience. I don't want it to last forever. This to me is a larger cliffhanger than the first season. I liked the first season because it felt like they were going a place. This one, I'm a little frustrated with where they might go. That's my point.
I think
I don't appreciate the way it ends
from
in that aspect because me, I'll get to it honestly when we get to the spoilers. So I don't want to get too detailed on this because it's kind of silly. We're talking in a bit of a circle.
But anyway. Fair enough.
But yeah, otherwise though, it's excellent. And again, like there's also even just the way it was shot in the first scene in season 2, just an incredible sequence that's would have been very difficult to shoot in this this long running sequence basically, where Adam Scott kind of looks like Tom Cruise. It's just so good. And also,
didn't he actually say that he was watching Tom Cruise videos to figure out how to run? Yeah.
And you can tell. And honestly, Adam Scott kind of looks a little bit like Tom Cruise. I realized it more and more the more I watched Severance season 2. I don't know if you found the same thing, but he actually vaguely does look like Tom Cruise. Quite a bit, actually, I found. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's cool. And then the intro sequences are just the bomb. They're so good. They're just divine. They're really great chef's kiss intro sequences that
they're creepy. Like, it's unsettling. It's
creepy, sure, yeah. But it's like the intro sequences with Theodore Shapiro's score is just so good. And it's crazy. It's good. It's very imaginative. Like Dan Erickson, who like writes the show, like thank goodness he made it, and he got to make this show, and he found the people to make it. And he found Ben Stiller, who was interested in making it. It's pretty sweet, and yeah, it's well-deserved viewership. So I'm hoping they can maybe cut down the budget so it's more sustainable, and then they can continue to do this for as long as they want to, so that we can actually get a conclusion. But yeah, that's it. But is there anything else you wanted to mention on the non-spoiler side of this little review we have here?
I think, yeah, again, I don't want to dive too into it. But yeah, I think, all the actors were standout. We didn't mention Britt Lauer really, or Zach Cherry, as Helly and Dylan respectively. I think they add so much. I haven't seen Britt Lauer in anything, and Zach Cherry, I feel like maybe I passed him in random shows or movies, but
also in You.
Is he also in You? Me?
He's in You. He's also in
Spider-Man, right? He's a Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yeah. Hey, Spider-Man, do a flip.
Yeah, that's that guy. And he's also in Shang-Chi as well. He's on the...
Yeah, I assume he's the same guy in that. But he's in You. Yeah. He's in the first season quite a bit. He works in the bookstore.
Yeah. So, I kind of passed him. But yeah, it's cool like to be introduced to some of these actors. And, there's the introduction of Miss Wong. That character played by Sarah Bach, who I think she was 16 when the show came out. She looks way younger. When the show was being recorded, and she is a standout character as well, and actor. She, again, she's an adult now, but she was 16 when this was being filmed, and she played off all the very great actors. Didn't take me out of it. I think. Yeah, I think this was awesome. A phenomenal season of television. I tend to agree with you that it's not as tight as the first season, but I think it adds a lot more plot threads, and we're following a little bit more, on not only kind of the inside workings of it all, but on the outside workings of this whole Severance program, Severed Floor and everything like that. So yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from there, but I personally I watch them so close to one another, but I guess gun to my head, maybe this is, a recency bias, but I think I like the second season more than the first, and I loved the first season. So
maybe I can change your mind. There's some moments in it that have even you mentioned Sarah Bach. It's interesting. It's just it's Sarah Bach is a kind of maybe an example of this, but there's certain things that happen in the show that I'm like, why are they happening? And you mentioned that they answer questions, but I don't know that they are answering questions as much as and as reliably as the first season. And I'll say reliably as the answer. Fair because the way they're answering them is not as satisfying, and it reminds me of Lost actually. And some of the answers that we get, you remember Lost? There was that weird epilogue to Lost that they kind of answered some questions that they'd never answered before. Some of the answers we're getting lately they kind of remind me of that. There's polar bears in Lost, and they're just they're polar bears. This is why they're here, and then explained it in a weird way in the epilogue. I'm like, what is this? What are you talking about?
I don't remember that honestly at all. I thought I
had to watch. It was on the special features thing on the Lost disc. There were some things that they never quite solved in Lost. Polar bear is a bad example. Whatever the answers were, they gave them some answers for why certain things were the way they were. Because fans were kind of upset at the end because they didn't tie up loose ends. And I'm finding that the loose ends are tying up and not tying up. I'm curious if they're just going to ditch threads because they're starting to get a little bit lazy with it. It felt like the first season was a very tightly knit scarf, very tightly. And this one's the scarf's a little bit it's dangling a little bit. You're looking at the colors on the scarf. There's stripes on it. It's beautiful, right? And then you kind of ignore the fact that it's kind of tattered in some spots. And so that's what I'm getting here. And I just hope that it looks to me like they redid this season. And that's where the budget went, because how the heck do you spend that much money? That's a crazy thing. It's crazy. The show looks awesome. It looks beautiful. There's a lot of cool things that happen. That's not that much money. It's just not. So there's some problem there that happened. And I think there was a rumor that they had rewrote it. That must be why it took 3 years. But it couldn't have been a smooth sailing situation. I think they might have had some problems. But that's, yeah. But yeah, anyway, largely as a whole, though, a great success, incredible success. I'm just trying to temper I know there's a lot of hype online. Everyone loves this. And I think it could have been better.
And you're a hater.
Hoping, yeah, exactly. Because there's no nuanced response. There's only I hate it or I love it so much. But regardless of that, I think it would be cool if season 3 they could tidy it up a bit. And because they've just been renewed, and they're renewed right after, or actually just right before the finale, that they can jump in and rewrite it right away. Ben Stiller was on in an interview recently, and somebody point blank asked him, "So are we expecting 3 years?" Like as a cheeky question, and he said right away, like, "No, no, I don't think so. That better not be," is what he said. So like that's a kind of a good answer, but I'm kind of like, dude, you should just say it's 1.5 to 2 years as your plan here, so we can move on. It would be awesome if it was a year, like a network show, but I guess we'll see, won't we?
Mm-hmm.
But if we're gonna name actors, by the way, I should say Tramell Tillman.
Oh, dude,
so good, dude. And also, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, but this guy's freaking awesome. Olafur Dari
Olafsson, as Mr. Drummond.
Mr. Drummond, unbelievable. Yeah, so good. It's so good. This it's really good. Those two, like Tramell Tillman is like, there's something, I like the side plots with the characters that know more. I've always thought that was cool. Like the players on the inside and trying to see what their reactions are and see them dealing with their own situations, like Patricia Arquette in the first season and in this season. Patricia Arquette's character in Mrs. Cobell. And it's neat to see like what she deals with too. That's a different type of, she's on the inside and we're getting the snippets somehow. They're filming snippets so specifically that we don't get the answers all at once. And I think that's really genius writing. There was I think it's episode 8 that does that in a major way. And episode 7, as you mentioned too, does that in a major way. There's a lot of episodes in this that kind of do not what I'm saying where it gives you the answers, but it kind of takes a turn where it gives you an inside scoop of various things.
Yeah, episode 8, Sweet Vitriol, is I think the one you're pointing at. But I will...
Don't get too specific.
I won't get specific, but I will say that I think is the weakest episode of the entire series. But by far, in my personal
Interesting. I strongly disagree.
Yeah. I'm curious what your thought is. But yeah, like once that episode finished, like both me and my fiance are like, I don't really like that one that much.
Okay, like, interesting. All right.
I like where it ends, but yeah.
In that case, the anticipation is quite high here. So let's jump into I'm literally plugging my phone in so it doesn't die because my phone is my webcam. Okay. All right. There we go. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do the spoilers, shall we?
Sure thing, man.
Are you ready for spoilers? Okay.
I think so.
Spoilers time. It is time for spoilers. A spoiler review of Severance Season 2, which obviously includes Severance Season 1. So if you haven't watched Severance Season 1, you should probably also not watch this. But if you haven't watched Severance Season 2, what are you doing? Go watch it. And then we're going to spoil the heck out of it here.
Sure.
For you can come back to it. But yeah, the spoiler warning has passed. It is time now, Adrian. What did you think of Season 2 on a spoiler perspective?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I said still stands, but I think there's some really awesome. I mean, you touched on it, so I want to talk about Mr. Milchek for a minute, who is, in my opinion, arguably the best character in the show. And this season does a really good job adding extra insight in, again, like the men on the inside, people that are in it, that know a little bit more, that where things are happening, but them also kind of struggling with what is happening. And you're seeing it kind of not necessarily with their what they're saying, but their facial expressions and how they are reacting to certain situations. So my favorite scene, I think, in this entire season, there's a character named Natalie who is played by Sydney Cole Alexander. And she's like the woman that is essentially the person in between everyone that works at Lumen and the board being faceless. You don't hear these people, you don't see these people, nothing like that.
Are they faceless?
That's the question. I don't know. We haven't seen them, I don't think.
Haven't we?
You think we have?
This is my criticism of the show, but yeah.
Fair enough.
I think so.
Oh, interesting. So, but she's essentially the person, the middleman, the middle woman, for lack of a better term, that will, like, you know, let people know whether they can talk to the board or if the board's listening or what the board says. And I think there's this amazing scene where Mr. Milchek, you know, gets the promotion. Patricia Arquette's, you know, Harmony Cobell at the end of the first season, essentially is fired, and then, you know, comes back and you know, doesn't get her position back, and Mr. Milchek takes over her position to run the Severed Floor. And because of that, there's this amazing scene where Natalie goes up to him, who is a black woman. Mr. Milchek is a black man, and says, like, you know, as you know, because of your promotion, we want to give you a gift. And it is a album of pictures of Keir, who is, you know, Egan, like the top of the Egan family, the person that made Lumen, as a black man. It's like, so you can see yourself in Keir. Here's a bunch of pictures of Keir as a black person. And that is one of the, again, I'm a white dude. I don't understand, like, you know, I don't know the black experience or whatever. Or
they're gonna say, I don't understand race.
No,
I heard an R when you were gonna say, I don't understand. No, I think you do.
Yeah, like you know, I don't understand that racist experience that you know, black people go through, obviously. But she gives it to him as a black woman to this black man. And they're looking through it, and both of them, just from their facial expressions, they don't say anything about it, are in total understanding of how fucked up that is, how weird that this whole situation is, how deeply racist it is. And again, they don't exchange any words about it at all at the time. It's them kind of looking at each other, almost looking like they want to cry, but have this fake smile on their face and having to be thankful for this act of unbelievable racism, essentially. And it is so well done. And again, I think Mr. Milchek, again, played by Tremel Tillman, just conveys his feelings so well in just the way he looks at people. And it seems like he has, honestly, I'm most curious about his character and why he's even at the company, because it seems like he has, like, true disdain for Keir and the Egans. And later on in the series, when he's kind of reprimanded by Mr. Drummond for using, you know, like a vast vocabulary and kind of losing the control of the Severed Floor, he's like kind of sitting through like this, you know, I guess, job review, and like trying to kind of get through it. And then later on in the season, when Mr. Drummond is trying to, you know, put his foot down again at Mr. Milchek, he just stands up to Mr. Drummond and demands respect. He's like, I run this floor. You have to respect me. I don't care if you're my superior. Like, fuck you, essentially. And then again, that kind of adds to the whole disdain and his hatred for Keir and the Egans is in the finale when he's, you know, Mark finishes Cold Harbor. Technically, again, we're jumping ahead. I just want to dive into his character specifically. There's like almost like a weird stand-up routine where the wax figure of Keir Egan is there watching this happen, and they're doing kind of like a stand-up routine. And Keir is, long story short, all the lines that he's saying are you know, putting Mr. Milchek down and talking shit about him until Mr. Milchek like talks back and snaps back and has like almost like, again, this look of hatred towards it. So it's like, he's obviously in this position, he's in there, but like, why? You know, it's asking those questions like, why are you dealing with this? Why are you there? You understand that this is all racist. It seems like you hate these fucking people. Like, what is happening
now? Sure, yeah. Now it's character development. He wasn't like that before, right?
Yeah, in the first season, particularly.
Well, until that happened with the pictures, then he suddenly had a reality check. That scene is so monumental with him and Natalie because they're looking at each other and they like he's realizing that it's a problem, and then he confronts her about it later because he's now having these conflicted feelings about this cult basically it seems like Lumen's some kind of cult. It's a very strange thing, which is why episode 8 is so brilliant, in my opinion. And I think the show should ebb and flow. I feel like it's too bad you didn't like that episode, because to me that's like the most color we received. There's like a very the problem with the show is it's a little bit surface actually this season. That was kind of my issue with it, but yeah, no, that's that. Yeah, no, I feel like it's true. He kind of is turning on them in a weird way, but he's also has to take care of the severed floor at the same time. But I feel like it's at that moment in the office, that he starts to have conflicting thoughts about it, because he's an ethical person in some way. I guess he believes himself to be an ethical person. I mean, how could you work there? but I think that's the thing. But anyway, yeah.
But even when he confronts Natalie, he's not necessarily saying like, hey, this is fucked up. He literally says like, I want you to understand that I am so grateful for this gift that I received. And he kind of like,
he asks about it though. Yeah. He asks her about it to see what she thinks about it, because he's like, well, we're in a similar position. What did you think about it? Right. That's what he asks. And he's asking her because he thinks she can relate, because it's very strange. We both work here. How could I have not seen this before? That's kind of the impression I got. He's like, what the hell? And he's having problems. And not only that, but he's getting reviewed by Drummond, and he's claiming that he's using too like large. The words he's using are too large. I don't know. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Drummond's like, is like this big, like massive asshole. Essentially, he's this dick. Yeah. But I just like that line where he says like devour feculence is one of the greatest lines in like TV history. I don't know.
Like what?
And then he looks at him weird, and he's like, shit. It means eat shit. Yeah. I don't know. It's great. The thing is, it's like, it's so hypocritical too, because it's like, what you can't. That's part of the racism, possibly, because they always use huge words. That's the problem. They have a Bible that uses ridiculous vocabulary. So the fact that he's being told that he can't talk like that, I think the moment he's starting to realize that they're even more like discriminatory than he ever thought. Because what are you talking about? He's speaking to Flowery. You speak like that. Even in the last like episode of the season, Drummond is talking to the goat lady.
Yeah, Gwendolyn Christie, who's awesome. Gwendolyn
Christie's character, and he's using big words there too. Yeah, he's like he's using the word wiles to describe the goat. It's like, all right, buddy. Okay, cool. But yeah.
So I don't know. I really love the arc Mr. Milchek goes on in this, and
sure, I agree.
Yeah, and yeah, like I think he is, in my personal opinion, like my favorite character of the show, and arguably like the best character. But yeah, and also just the choreography with the dance at the end. This show, it's been talked about online, is very reminiscent of, I think, two video games specifically. Control, which is made by Remedy Entertainment. A guy named Sam Lake made that game. It's very visually, I think, quite similar. White hallways, all of that, as well as in Control, there's like the board or whatever it's called in Control. And it is a very similar thing. It's like a box or like a phone call, and you don't really hear anyone talking. It's just kind of static, right? So I think that's very similar. And then a lot of people were making kind of connections to the Stanley Parable. Again, kind of like,
I think it's more similar to the Stanley Parable.
Yeah, and for me, at the end of you haven't played this game, but Alan Wake 2 is a game made by Remedy Entertainment, Sam Lake, the people that made Control. And I felt like that choreography scene at the end or in the season finale with Mr. Milchek was so reminiscent of that game for me. Like, I was like, holy shit, man. It's it's so awesome. I love this almost like intersection of video games and TV that I think is becoming more and more prevalent, and not necessarily like adaptations, but like from the looks of it, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Inspiration, I guess. So yeah, I really loved that. God, so good. So good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, I'm just going through my notes here. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, really like Natalie. The one kind of theme that I actually started thinking about while watching this season as well is kind of like the theme of love as well in the show. Yeah. How people, I mean, the reason why Mark is, started working at Lumen is because he thinks that he lost his wife, Gemma, dies in a car accident. And he, instead of living, all 24 hours a day in, as his Audi, he wanted to work at Lumen so he could forget about his wife for 8 hours a day because he's like kind of dealing with it. And the thing that I found very interesting is how love essentially can transcend severance, if that makes sense. But the thing with Mark and Gemma is, or Miss Casey, who again is eventually revealed to be Gemma, like his wife, is almost like the one thing that goes against that theory, because you have people like Heliar and Mark, obviously falling in love. But on the outside, when Helena, sees Mark, she's very attracted to him. It's like she wants Mark to be it. And it's like, again, you can maybe consider it's because she's crazy and she saw that her innie is falling for him. She had
sex with him, but
yeah, literally. That is like she rapes him technically, man. Like it's kind of fucked up, like in a weird way. Like she took advantage of him. Yes, he wanted to have sex with Heliar, but I mean, the show dives into the philosophy around it, the ethics behind it, but that's not who she was, because it keeps on diving into your innie and outie are two separate people. That's kind of like the common theme of this show. So that was very interesting. But
it's also weird, though, they spent a full day together and then he had sex with her, though.
Yeah, and
he initiated it.
Fair enough.
So it's again the question of like, are your memories you? And that's the big question. It's like, yes. It's like it's a tricky situation, but it's like the whole day out in that. That's an amazing episode where they're
Woe's Hollow, episode 4.
I think they're out in the wilderness for that like field trip, basically. Yeah, they just keep asking those questions. It's just those what again. It's such an interesting thing. What if a severed employee tried to unsever? Like, what if my Audi had an affair with my innie without my knowledge? What if they, you know what I mean? What if the innies went on a field trip? Like, I don't know. What if my Audi knew that my innie had an affair with another innie?
Well, that's the thing, right? And that's kind of where it dives into my next point. Irving and Bert, right? There's one of my favorite like plot threads in the first season is like this relationship between Irving, who's played by John Turturro, and Bert, who's played by Christopher Walken, and them essentially having this like romantic relationship that builds in the first season. It's very cute. It's wholesome, honestly. And then on the outside, Bert or Irving's Audi eventually meets Bert. Bert meets him, and then they have this instant connection. They fell in love as innies, and now their Audis are compatible and kind of falling in love as the season progresses, which I found very interesting.
But there's different things that are happening with Irving simultaneously. He's having dreams that's showing him that hallway and the elevator, which why is he having that dream is such an interesting aspect too. We don't really understand what's going on with Irving. Like he didn't respond to the severance procedure as other people did, it seems. It seems like that whole marching band has been severed. We don't know what they're doing in the background, but we also see what macro data refinement like employees are doing at home, and they don't seem to have the same kind of weird connection to the innie that Irving has. It's strange. Like that's an aspect that's fascinating too that they didn't really answer. But
yeah. And again, with Gretchen and Dylan, Gretchen being played by Merritt Weaver, I believe, is the actress's name, who's Dylan's wife on the outside, and she starts meeting Dylan on like Dylan's innie on the inside, and then them kind of her falling in love with her husband and liking his innie because it's the best version of himself. And Dylan, again, immediately falling in love with Gretchen. And it might be because he has the knowledge that his Audi is in love with this woman and that they have a family together, and he just loves the idea of that, but he also falls in love with her again, right? And again, there is that aspect I mentioned, like the whole Miss Casey and Mark S thing is almost goes against that theory. But in season 1, when Miss Casey is getting fired, I think she says something along the lines of like, for what it's worth, like my favorite time in here was when I was with you. So again, it doesn't go against that theory. So like love for whatever reason transcends a severance, but Mark S still loves.
You're saying love isn't like because you have memories with the person that they're somehow going through the thing because you have strong feelings for them. Mm-hmm. Not like love as in like a concept that like philosophically. Well, maybe I don't know. I'm not sure what your thoughts on love are. Maybe you believe that there's some kind of like a you know what I mean? That's people believe that there's like this destiny, like predestined. People believe that. I don't personally believe that. I think love is kind of an action in a large way. And so I'm not maybe believe. I know a lot of people.
It's a feeling. Like love is you fall in love with people. Yeah, it's not destiny. Yeah, no.
Yeah, but I thought maybe you thought that maybe perhaps too. But like that's it's interesting because they've been with each other for so long. Like Mark doesn't get to spend time with Miss Casey.
No,
like she's barely a character. She was a part-time employee at Lumen while he was there in season 1. So it's like where she was there in season 1. So it's not really if they had given them more of a chance, but Miss Cobell was trying to push that, and that's kind of when she was pushed out. They didn't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not like she's such a fascinating character because her agenda is very intriguing because we don't really know what she's about. What is she going to do? What is she really going to do? She seemed to want to go back to them, and the fact that she literally created Severance is probably the biggest reveal in the entire show. That's why episode 8 to me is a great episode, and also the way it's shot. It's shot somewhere in Canada. I think it was New Brunswick, or I can't remember now where it was, but it's beautifully shot, just gorgeous. And so it's just so interesting and you can see the cult-like aspect of Lumen. You finally they're pulling the blinds off of this. That was to me the most revealing episode probably of the entire series.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think
questions that
I think it revealed a lot. Yeah, and again, showing that Miss Cobell again created the Severance program and that Lumen essentially was using child labor and drugging these kids to make them work harder and ruining like a small town entirely is very interesting. I just felt that episode, although it had a lot of reveals, I think it ended in a good place, was ultimately my least favorite out of the 19 episodes that I've watched. And I felt like it was, I don't want to say boring because that's not really but it felt off. I don't know. I didn't love that episode. And my fiance kind of felt the same way. But yeah, I 100%, man. They revealed a bunch of shit in that episode where I was like, oh fuck, that's crazy. And again, I really
beautifully shot and beautifully acted too. So that's the part. Like I think Patricia Arquette just everything. She's kind of a scene stealer in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. She's funny when you listen to her in an interview. Same with Tremel Toman. I haven't heard watched that many interviews with them, but when they talk, they don't seem like they act at all like the character, like at all. Mm-hmm. Like even the tone of voice and the way their dialect operates. It's like another thing that we talk about in episode 106, Mickey 17. Actually, I know we're going to talk about that. But like Robert Pattinson's dialect as an example, but it's intriguing. Like you can kind of see if you watch Adam Scott in an interview, his voice is not that far off. Although Adam Scott's difference in terms of his innie and his outie are incredible. He did such a great job of trying to kind of changing them. Same with Britt Lauer in some way, but I don't know enough about her honestly, her outie. And what kind of irked me about episode 4, although it is a brilliant episode, is that like she isn't all that different. It's like she pulled it off so well. She confused me too. Like it's kind of strange. Like I'm sure there's little subtle things that if you watch it over, you can tell. But I'm not sure that the differences are that stark. Because obviously,
that's crazy.
Mark Scout didn't notice it. So
that's interesting. Because for me, I knew in the first episode, like I was watching episode 1 of season 2, and I was like, "That's not Helly." I knew it immediately. And but
Mark didn't know. So, I mean...
Yeah, I'm aware Mark didn't know. And again, I think because she's trying her best to act as much like Helly. And again...
Why did you think that? Why did you think that it wasn't her?
Because there was multiple... I can't think of the exact... It's been 10 weeks since I watched the first episode. But there's like a couple of things that she says or does within that first episode where I'm like, something's off. And I remember
anything
turning
specific?
To her. I can't remember anything specific. It was 10 weeks ago. But I do remember... Yeah, first episode, I was like, that's she's Helena. I was like, she's not Helliar. Like they never switched her back, and I was so confident in that. And I was very glad that they did the reveal in the 4th episode because I was worried that this was going to be kind of an end of season reveal, and I would be like, oh, like I already knew that. Like I feel like it was obvious, and they were willing to kind of, again, like create a mystery early on and give you that answer within, the first 4 episodes of the series.
Giving more mysteries and answering them is not really what I'm looking for. I kind of want to get the answers of the things that they've already asked. Like that's the things that they ask of the audience, or that questions that the audience are asking. That's what I feel like aren't answered in this season. Like that's kind of my criticism of the show as a whole in this season. It just feels weird. Like especially episode 9. I feel like episode 9 is, I think, the worst episode of the show overall.
Interesting. What happened in episode 9?
20
give me
episodes.
That's
that Bird and Irving. Suddenly we're like, oh yeah, he was investigating him. Oh yeah, he's an enforcer. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. That's cool. Why didn't you tell us this before? Why couldn't we see this before? It's strange. Why are we in the dark more about this than we are about Mr. Milchek's feelings about Lumen? We knew Irving from the beginning. It felt like Irving was just, John Turturro's out of the show. We don't have time. John Turturro's doing a bunch of movies. He has no time. That's what it feels like. It's like, I did just recast him then, because that to me felt very disappointing. It was like, it's one of the most disappointing episodes. I was shocked. I was like, wait, he doesn't even have a suitcase. He's just getting on a train. What's going on here? Like, how does this world work is a question that I didn't ask in the first season. The first season drip fed, and it spent the time on the outside, and it talked about the various things. There were protesters. There was a funeral. There was various things that Mark was doing on the outside that kind of got the answers. The ambulance showed up as an example for Petey when Petey collapsed outside of a convenience store, outside of a gas station, convenience store. And so you get this idea is like, okay, the world is pretty much like what we know. Mark goes to a concert at one time. He's dating somebody. You can see these like various aspects of how it's like our real life. It's grounding the show in a large way. Mark goes to a dinner with Rickon. And where's Rickon? What happened to Rickon? There's just like a bunch of things that they have these threads they just build up, and it just feels like a bunch of hairy threads. And then they just follow certain ones. You had mentioned Natalie. What happened to Natalie? What happened to her? It's so strange. And the answer is they don't need Natalie anymore because Mr. Drummond is on the board. So you don't need Natalie when you've got a board member. And the fact that you don't know, of course, but see, why don't we know that? So you didn't think he was on the board because you mentioned it earlier. But it's like, I feel like, yeah, he's got to be. He's got a direct line in to Egan. He's talking to James on a consistent basis. He's got to be on the board. It would be strange. I thought initially that he wasn't on the board, that he was the replacement for the head of security, Grainer.
Yeah, that was my assumption as well.
But it can't be that because he's got a line into, unless Grainer was also on the board. It's strange. And like Natalie, even all that stuff with the you mentioned that is awesome, that aspect of the speaker that kind of speaks out for the board. That just went away, and now the mystery's gone. Drummond is now talking to Milchek inside the building. It's like, what? Why are you breaking the things you were already doing? It's like Milchek just got this promotion, and he's already got like this like line in with the board, and the board was all mysterious. It's just strange. Like there's a bunch of that like happened throughout the season. I was like, it just feels like you're missing like episodes. Like you ran out of time, especially with Bird and Irving. The Bird and Irving thing is crazy because it's like he just gets on a train and they're being like all mysterious. He's just like, yeah, I didn't hurt anyone really, and like John Noble's character, like Bert's husband, is kind of like talking about how he's like a bad guy, and I'm like,
and not only that, I thought there's also
by the way.
Like during that dinner episode, which is a great episode, by the way,
great,
where
but useless.
He drops how Bert has been severed for 20 years, and then quickly Bert's like, no, like we've only had the severance program for 10 years, and it kind of like it doubles back. So again, I think those are mysteries, and in my like,
which part's a mystery?
How it's been going on for 20 years, like the severance program, even though that the public knowledge is only 10, that very clearly it's been going on for much longer.
Right.
And we're not.
So they ask another question. Right. I know, exactly. But that's another thing. Like it's more questions. And it's like, that's cool, but you kind of have to go into it. Like it felt more like they were willing to answer questions in the beginning of the show, but now they're asking more questions. And then Bert is interesting, but Bert doesn't do much without Irving. So it's like you kind of create, like maybe you do follow Bert afterwards, but it's weird. Like he went on a train. Irving's one of the most interesting characters on the show, and he's just now gone. It's like a weird.
Do you think though that he is actually gone? Like I
don't know. I don't know, but it's like, but why make him go away at all? Like he just was shuffled off like real quick. So Bert basically convinced him to go to dinner so that Drummond could go to his house and go through his stuff. so he could determine that he was investigating. And then Bert showed up in his house, and he's an enforcer. I had guessed that Bert was working for Lumen at the dinner. That is a guess that I made right away. That was fairly obvious at the dinner. That's cool. Yeah. But it's like, you didn't really reveal that. You revealed it in such a way that I even went back and I'm like, wait, did we know this before? I was like, I don't understand this. Like, I went back to that scene where he's sitting on the chair, and I'm like, did they know this at the dinner that they worked outside? He worked outside of Lumen for Lumen. Like, I'm like, I thought we guessed this. Like, my fiance, like Dawn, guessed it too, and we were like, wait, what? Did we miss something? Like, we literally didn't understand. And if you have an audience member going back, dude, you missed something. You kind of failed a little bit. Like, there's a little bit of we were like, did we miss an episode? Because it's like we missed some big aspects of various things. And honestly, it's crazy that they didn't go back to the real world almost at all. And like, the time they go back to the real world is an example. They go back to like the before times when Gemma and Mark just start dating. And that episode's immaculate.
Yeah, especially that is episode 7. Again, Chikai Bardo. That was with Jessica Lee Gagne, who does the cinematography. And holy moly, dude! That is, I genuinely think like it is the most beautiful and visually captivating episode of the entire series by far. Like, I thought it was brilliant, start to finish. So emotional,
very good.
It's like, show me 8 shots of eyeballs zooming in, and I'm just sitting there being like, "This is a fucking awesome, dude." It's like, why?
But it's good. But it's just like, that's cool. But and then it looks like that world is normal, and like Lumen's not mentioned, really, very subtly. And then obviously the parts where she's in the Lumen that are mentioned. But when they go back in time and stuff, and the way they shot and the way they do like the old filter and stuff, it's awesome. But we don't get the idea of what is it the world like, because I don't understand also like, how big is Lumen? How powerful is Lumen? Does Lumen have a lot of money? Why didn't they rehire a Grainer? What are they doing with security? Because their security sucks ass. It's strange though. Like, but why is that the case? And these questions start piling up, and then you start thinking, is the writing maybe not quite as good as you think? Like, they're maybe biting off more than they can chew. And that's really where it comes down to. It's like, it's brilliant, but it's like, if you really start thinking about it, there's so many things that they just don't really get to. And like, Rickon was working with Natalie apparently, and then it never happened. He was writing a Bible that never seemed to materialize. Yeah. And it's like, it's just strange. And it's like, because you ran out of time. That's what happened. If you had the time to go back to those scenes, you might have done it, but you kind of just didn't have time to do it. So you kind of pull at threads and then you leave them. It reminds me of like Marvel end credit scenes. Like, how many of these are they just going to leave dangling and never answer again? Because they realize, you know what, we can do something else. It's like, I don't know. Like the idea of the controversy on the outside about Severance is actually quite interesting. And it's interesting, like Devin, like Scout's, the Scout's sister, Devin Scout. Yes. She says in the last episode, by the way, the way the first episode, that last episode begins is really interesting. The conversation asks that other question of like, what if you could talk to your innie while you were in Audi, or what would you say to them? And then you can talk back and forth, which is they don't let you do. And that's so interesting too. And so well shot. That's where Adam Scott really shines too, because he's showing like the two sides of himself, the innie and the outie, and how they're different. It was just like an acting clinic in a way. It was very good. He did a great job. That's a great scene. And they weren't afraid to do that. And they do that, and they do it really well. But then, but Devin asks the question, like, she's kind of asking, well, we can stop this, and then we'll get her out, and then we'll go to the authorities. It's like, and my question as an audience member is like, you just said the authorities word. You said authorities. Now my mind is like, as it has been for a while, but you didn't say it before. I'm thinking like, why wouldn't you do it before? Like, what is the problem? Is this like some kind of fascist capitalist society where like you can't go to the police because you won't get away with it because Lumen's so big they're too big to fail? You couldn't take them down. Like, what does it look like? Because they never tell you. And that's the issue. And like at a certain point, you're going to keep asking those questions. Why wouldn't they go after them? Do you know you have a witness. Cobell is right there. You can go and to the authorities right now. She's witnessed it. She literally designed the program for Cold Harbor. You can use that data and go into the police today. Why are you wasting time? Why would you risk going and finishing Cold Harbor when you know she's going to be killed after that? That's so crazy, but we don't know the answer because they didn't answer or let us even ask those questions because they don't show you enough about the world on the outside anymore. They decided to close that part off so we can't know what would happen. And I think that that's a bit cheap and a bit like you're kind of cheating the way you're writing it. You could, if you wrote it better, you could maybe, like, it's hard to write that. That's the problem, is that you've asked now so many questions and invited so many questions that it's difficult. But yeah, that's the trick. Like, it's a brilliant TV show. It's one of the best TV shows running currently on the air, but they gotta get it tighter than this. Like I almost think they got rid of Irving because it's like you don't have the capacity to deal with it. Like you've bit off so much and you can't run it for 10 episodes and solve the questions you've invited by the audience. So you kind of have to. It's interesting. It's intriguing. Even Zach Cherry's character, like, I thought he was kicked to the curb. I thought he was leaving. I thought he got into the elevator and he's going to be done. I'm like, I think he's done because they don't have the capacity to keep him around because there's too much going on. Like Lumen. So the ending of this season, the finale is again one of the greatest episodes of TV in a while. Like, I think it's excellent. It's so good. Man. The way it starts, and then the marching band specifically, and then they lock him in the thing, and then the friggin' fight in the hallway is unbelievable. Yes. Drummond is so interesting, but again, it begs the question, why would he try to kill him? We don't understand anything. You know what I mean? Like, if you watch Lost, right? You get the idea when there's a mystery. Like, you kind of understand why a character would do a certain thing somehow, like a little bit. Like, you understand it a little bit, and you kind of like expect to get an answer. If they killed Mark, it would have been literally a lawsuit or not, because they don't seem to care about somebody going missing or being kidnapped. So you kind of have to answer something about the real world to make it make sense. When he's choking him out, I'm like, okay, this is an awesome fight scene. This is a really cool scene. But if you take it a look, if you go to the bird's eye view or like take a bigger picture look, you start to realize, wait, he's on the board? He works with James directly. He's killing Mark, the guy who they just, first of all, they relied on the whole time. They can kill his wife. They faked her death, and the authorities, the police literally came to his door. That was actually the only moment in the show actually that made sense on a grounding perspective, because the police come to his door to announce that his wife is dead in a car accident. I guess they're on the payroll, or we don't know. And it's like they don't have the budget. Like, they didn't want to hire any actor as the head of security again. So they just like forgot about Grainer, and Grainer was dead, and that was it. And they just wander around.
Yeah, like, okay. The way I looked at it is that Drummond was Grainer's replacement, and I never
but he's working with James.
Of him. Yeah, I guess I get where you're coming from, like, directly. But yeah, I don't know. I never took it that he was on the board. Maybe I'm wrong. Again,
but why would James would just go to the board? He wouldn't go to one guy who's the head of security. Like, he's the head of the company. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's the thing, is like, do they have the answer for that? Because it looks like maybe they don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually almost more talking about, like, the long-term aspect of the show is the season 3 could be shit. Season 2 is excellent, but like, you have now opened cans of worms that you maybe you're not capable of answering. And like, especially if you're going to accelerate the process to write the next season, I'm curious, like, are you going to be able to hold up, like, or are you just going to make a bunch of things that are plot convenience because you need to now? I don't know. It's weird. Like, Natalie was this go-between. It's why do you need Drummond to go talk to Milchek, other than Drummond being a very interesting character to watch? He's so interesting, but you kind of have to follow the chain of command. You can't just break it randomly. I don't know. I'm so curious. Like, it's the most curious thing I've ever seen. Because as I got to the end of the show, the worst thing about the last episode is that they go and of course, like, Deacon Lackman, who's really great, by the way. Like, Deacon Lackman's character, Gemma, Mark's wife, she goes and she gets out. She gets out of the door on the hallway. And he lets her out.
So, yeah, So before we get to that point, I almost want to take a step back about Gemma as a character, because the reveal of where Gemma is in episode 7, essentially being held captive under Lumen,
right?
Not really understanding why or even how, because Mark says that he saw her dead body.
Yeah.
Even with the reveal at the end of the season, essentially them talking about that MDR has been creating, like every file that they've been creating is another innie for Gemma, if I'm understanding this correctly.
So this is 25, right? 25 innies.
Did they explain as to why that is, or why they were doing that? Because there's this brief, because the Cold Harbor is her going in and taking apart the crib.
Yeah.
There's a reveal. Mark and Gemma, they were going to have a kid. She has a miscarriage. Yeah. Mark already built the crib, and then she goes in and, breaks it, or, he breaks it apart.
Yeah, he does. Well, she hears him downstairs breaking it apart, which is devastating. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, are they trying to figure out, like, to see if innies will ignore pain even when shown things that are directly connected to their outies' trauma? Because they're watching it, and then because the one guy who I forget that character's name. I wrote down a bunch of the characters, but I didn't write that guy. He has like the weird like thing on his forehead.
Do we know his name?
Maybe we don't know his name, actually.
I don't think so. I'm not sure we do.
Yeah.
Did she call him something? Good question. I can take a look.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And, he's kind of watching it play out, and he's like kind of almost excited. He's like, oh, she's not reacting.
Yeah. This is interesting. Yeah. Go on.
And it's like,
thinking about this.
So, like, was MDR created specifically? So, when did MDR get made? Was it created specifically when they took over Gemma? And what are they actually testing? Because from the looks of it, it already, like, them asking the question of, like, oh, will the innies ignore pain, related to trauma that is connected to their outies? But, like, the whole premise of the show is Mark going, like, working at Lumen to forget about the trauma, but then he's seeing Miss Casey consistently. So it asks those questions, like, what was the point of that? Like, what is it? I don't know. Maybe I'm too stupid. Did they answer that? Because Harmony Cobell is essentially, she started this program. And then again, it also adds to the question is MDR, again, assuming MDR was created to make these innies for Gemma, did Harmony Cobell like go out and find Mark specifically and bring him in so that he was still directly connected to Gemma? Like what is Cobell's motive?
These are great questions. I love how critically you're thinking about this. This is awesome. Yeah. Like, so the one so actually there is a name for that guy. His name is Dr. Maurer. But the thing about Dr. Maurer is interesting. So you that question you just asked is great. So you said, did Harmony Cobell go out and look for them? And the answer is maybe not Harmony Cobell, but they were definitely being surveilled long before. Because Dr. Maurer is at the baby doctor. He's the baby doctor in that scene when they go to the doctor's office. We slowed it down, and it's him. He walks by. He's in the background as they're walking in. So that's one of the craziest things. The miscarriage is likely not a it's not a mistake. Like it's not an error that happened. That like her body just rejected the baby. It seems like she was given drugs to make it so she couldn't have a baby. Based on that aspect, there's a scene again with him walking by. If that's a different actor, I mean, they picked a really, really lookalike guy to that Robbie Benson dude. I think his name is Robbie Benson.
Oh. Interesting.
The actor who plays him. So that's the crazy thing is like they clearly were surveilling them for a while. And they must have been because they had to fake her death somehow. So how'd they do that? And they must have the cops on the payroll. But this is the thing is like they've asked us to ask so many questions. Like they've invited us to ask so many questions. It's like, this is more than I remember even having in Lost. Like it's so much. Like you gotta be careful. This is too much. Like initially we were talking about how happy we were that they were answering questions in such a clip. And now I feel like going in, like at the midway point of the season, I was like, whoa, put the brakes on. Like there's just too much going on here. You need to like, they don't even have a time to take a breather. And then the crazy thing is like they had Mark trying to reintegrate. I'm like, okay, whoa. Are you sure you want to reintegrate him now? Because you have all these questions you haven't answered about the outside. And if he's out of commission because he's in a bad way, Petey was not in good shape. Like, do you really want to make him like this? Because then he can't really go visit his sister. He can't do various things because he's going to be disabled. He's going to be in bad shape. Like, so I was like, that's a strange choice. I was like, wow, this is a big swing you're going to take. You're going to try to reintegrate him like now? I was like, this is so early. I expected this to be in like season 3 or 4. You know what I mean? And I was like, and I was kind of happy about it in a weird way, but I was also thinking like, are you sure? And now I'm even more like, are you sure you were doing the right thing? Because we've missed out on so many other things that we don't really know about because they kind of just, they did that instead. Because a lot of the season also was taken up by flashback episodes in a way. Like there's a lot of like they took up 2 at least that were major episodes that were like completely not to do with the main current history plot. They're not present day, like they're past. Or present, but for somebody who we don't know anything about, and it's Harmony Cobell. And then the Harmony Cobell answers were like, wow, that was awesome. At least we got some answers. That was awesome. And then we got answers about his wife, but we knew she was obviously held captive because that's revealed in the first episode of season 2. So it's like, we don't really get any answers with that necessarily. We got the color, you know, like they filled in the picture. The coloring book was all colored in. So we're like, okay, I get it. We saw the outline. We know what it was like. And then we're like watching and she's basically being tortured. And the weird thing is that we don't really know she's down there. And she's like, she knows who she is. So she's not severed when she goes home to bed, like to the room to bed. She's got like a little suite. And you're like, but she's not like that urgently trying to escape. Like, did she come here by choice? It seems like she chose this. Like maybe they promised her you can get a baby or something. Like we'll fix you. This is like a medical procedure. Cause she's like, can I come go see Mark? Or maybe she's like doing like a Stockholm syndrome. Like she really wants to leave, but she's trying to like be negotiate cause it's been 4 years. I don't know. It's so interesting. Like, I don't know that dynamic. It's so weird. And Dr. Maurer is very rapey. I'll say that.
Oh, dude. Very much so.
I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's freaking creepy. There's like the Christmas card writing freaking severed version. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. And there's another question that they invited us to ask. Okay. So Mark is working on Cold Harbor, but there's a bunch of MDR employees that are there too. They're obviously working on their own thing because as they say, oh, these numbers are scary. These numbers are this. These numbers are that. So they're seeing scary or whatever. Are they seeing his wife? They're not seeing Gemma. They must be seeing their own. Or are they seeing his wife? That's the question I had. Like, I don't know. Are they working on multiple people? But then they keep saying, like, this is like the most momentous occasion in Lumen history, the most momentous thing in the history of the world. They keep saying they put this like giant, they put this thing on this giant pedestal. Like, I don't know, like it's too many questions. Like I think about like the first season and I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is interesting. There's a lot of questions and they're answering. They don't really ask you to ask too many questions. They're kind of answering them as you go. And then they throw some wacky shit in there, like the little dancing and the lights. The lighting, by the way, in this show, so good. Man, the lighting design is just amazing all the way through. And they almost have like it's almost like a theater presence in the way they can light it because they're in these indoor environments and they can do wacky things with it because it's not a normal place. So like even the lighting in like Kier Egan, that statue that only moves like this. That's so cool. And like how it did that. And then like it opens up the wall panel and there's like fog that comes out. There's like a fog machine. Well, there's like a comedy show going on and there's like a laugh track. It's like, what is this? Like, it's just so cool. But again, there's so many questions. I just don't like the first season. They showed us the museum and they gave us like little snippets. And then they asked us to like question like who's in the other departments and what are they doing and why are they doing what they're doing. By the way, did you notice? You must have noticed this, but the other departments, that little card that Zach Cherry's character, somebody had smuggled out a card from Bert's department. I can't remember the name of his department. Do you remember that card? It's like a card where he's standing up. It was like a yoga pose.
Yeah.
There's like a picture of a card. It's a green card, right? And that card is literally in Deacon Lackman's like Gemma's hand when she's trying to go through that treatment. You notice that?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, like, what is that? That's so cool though that exists. But I'm like, do they have an answer to that though? Because they've introduced so many things. It's like we're just like living in like that's why the end of the season is more frustrating to me than the first one because like they introduced way more questions and didn't answer any questions. Like they answered less questions than they answered. And the first season was like, yeah, it's the first season of a show. There's questions asked, but they kind of reveal it by showing you it in a way. And they're kind of answering the questions of the what if you were severed so often and so frequent and so meticulously that you can't really feel that bad about it, not knowing what Lumen actually does. The work is mysterious and important. So it's like, okay, cool. I don't know. And like we don't know, like they completed Cold Harbor and we don't know what it does. Like they're like waiting there and they're like, yeah, okay. So getting back to what you said, sorry, I've gone on a huge tangent after tangent. I'm gonna roll it back to what you said earlier. You said, do we know what it is that they've solved for her? It's the 25th severance of her consciousness. And she's sitting there in the room and they're like amazed. They're like, wow, Cold Harbor. And she's sitting there and she's unscrewing the baby crib. She's getting it done. Cool. And they're like, she doesn't know. And so it's like, yeah, that's what severance is. And I was like, okay, am I missing something? What is so special about this? Does anyone need to be severed 25 times? What I thought it was, because they kept saying that she would die after Cold Harbor, Cobell had said. I was like, okay, she's going to leave the room. I thought she was going to leave the room and collapse. Because she's going to believe, they're going to somehow train her mind to believe that she's dead. I thought Cold Harbor was a representation of the cold night that she was driving and she got into a car accident. She wore the same outfit.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought it was going to have something to do with like she's going to have to go there and sit in a car and then relive her death and then actually die. That was my assumption. She just dies. And then they just make her believe she's dead and she's actually not dead. Like they try to it's mind control. Like, but they didn't do anything special. It's the same shit we were seeing the whole time. And that's what's so weird. And it's like, is that exciting? Like, we really don't see at all what the answer was. And so that's what's disappointing to me. It's like, we're watching this and I'm like, they're not answering this question. In fact, they gave me another question. Like, what the hell is it then? I thought we were going to see what they were doing. We were going to see what the experiments even meant. We didn't find out anything. And then at the end of the thing, they get out and then he abandons her in the hallway. And in my estimation, that may not be true, but for me, she's in the Lumen building. So she didn't even leave. She has always been Gemma the whole time in this building since the beginning. Since we started seeing the show. She's always been in the building. And so now she's in the building again as Gemma, but just on the other side of the door. And Mark is in the severed floor, just like he was at the beginning of the season. So I'm like, we've actually been left off at the exact same moment we started the season. We accomplished nothing. And by the end of it, Mark won't know what happened to Gemma because he didn't let her out of the building. So therefore, Gemma could just be put back into the severed floor again, and you would never know. Because assuming Lumen has a lot of money, they obviously have security, so they got to be able to just put her back there. So I'm like, to me, we're at the exact same spot, except they're just going to be in they're just running down the hallway. What are they going to live like weird like rat people on the walls? Like they're not going to get away with this. They're just going to get in trouble again. It's just like the end of the season 1. Like they got in trouble because they did that. They did the what they call that thing? Overtime contingency.
Right. Overtime contingency. And that it's like the same thing. They're getting scolded for it, and then they end up in the same position. Yeah. Except we now don't have Irving, so we're just kind of one step back because he's the only one who kind of knew anything. He gave them the directions to the experimental floor. So, man, I don't know. It's like it's very conflicting for me. Like I think it's just one of the most beautifully shot, well written when it comes to dialogue, great ideas in TV, probably maybe ever that I've ever seen. It's such a cool idea. And it seems so silly maybe and so frivolous, but their dedication to the idea was so good. But the problem is the stuff around it, like the cult of Lumen, is more confusing than I have ever seen it now. I'm more confused about it than even in the beginning of season 1. Like I thought, oh, it's a corporation that's getting away with shit because corporations get away with shit. But it looks like they train these people from kids and then they become employees of the company. So like you're asking about why Mr. Milchek isn't leaving. It's because he was trained as a child. He probably worked in some freaking mine and he worked his way up to this. Who knows? He probably in a mine in a different place. Oh, no, not even that. I forgot about this. They asked the question they never answered right in the beginning, the first episode. They introduce all these characters on the severed floor and macro data refinement, and they say there's like multiple other branches. What are you talking? Is there multiple branches?
Or is it the same? Yeah.
Right, but maybe it's the same building, but they just ask that question and they never answer it and they never see them again. It's just like, okay, that's cool, but now I'm more confused than ever. It's like, I'm severed. God damn it. Like, I don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, it's strange. Don't you find you have more questions than you have answers by far? Like, after season 1, I'm like, I understand it. They have his wife. It's like, there's a mystery of why, but it's kind of like, okay, I get it. They're an evil corporation, but now they're like a cult.
Yeah.
Irving was in love with a guy who was both working. He somehow worked 24 hours a day. He worked as an employee on the severed floor full time and then came home and was an enforcer. Like, what? How does the time work that way? It doesn't even make any sense. Because Bert was working there for 20 years, 10 years, right?
No, so at least 20, because his husband says that, like, oh, you've been severed for 20 years. And
so, right. So,
but probably even longer than that, realistically. Maybe not severed, but maybe working for Lumen.
Wait, right? Maybe I misunderstood. Was Bert his innie when he was talking to Irving in his apartment? No,
his outie.
Right, because he's the bad guy. He claims he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know, man.
But yeah, it is interesting, and I guess to we kind of went away from it, but it was also interesting with Devin's character. I don't know if you saw, there's a theory going around online. It's a stupid theory that I don't necessarily agree with, that Devin is kind of in on it.
Like Jar Jar Binks is the most powerful Sith Lord, ever. Yeah.
And there is, and one of the big reasons why people are pointing it out is because Devin actually doesn't use an iPhone. She's one of the few characters that uses an Android. And people are and they're pointing that's that. But there was also in the first season when Dylan is kind of in that overtime contingency room, there's a person's name on it and it says Devin F. I think they proved that that's actually just someone that works on the production team, so that all the names on there were people that actually worked for the show. Interesting. But yeah, it is interesting because, like, the reason I disagree with it, it's very clear that, Devin is ride or die for Mark. She'll do anything for Mark. She's even talking against Lumen to Rickon when he's like writing that Bible, the book for the severed floor people. But the thing that kind of goes against it is, like, why does she call Miss Cobell? Is it like, I guess it is out of desperation. She's the only person she knows that works at Lumen. But at the same time,
you're saying it's for it, like for the theory?
Yeah, for the theory. It's like, what was the reason she would reach out to Miss Cobell out of all people? The woman that pretended to be someone else, that hid her baby and caused a panic in her house just so she could essentially, stop the severed people from revealing things on the outer world. Like, Cobell is very clearly pro-Lumen, and that is what Devin sees. Why did she choose to call her? So again, there's
plot convenience.
Some more questions as well. Because
we're looking at these writers, and Dan Erickson's team is infallible, but in reality, I think they're actually in over their head. Like, that's my theory. Actually, is like I don't know. I think she just did that. It's weird that she would do. You're right. Why did she do that?
Yeah,
like, it's like you were betrayed by this person who stole your baby. Like, are you kidding? You were going to call this woman? And I think it's a mistake. Because they didn't have anyone else to suggest it. Because the other lady, what's her name? The doctor who's literally was doing Severance. Like, she was doing the reintegration, but she was one of the doctors who, like, specifically did the surgery for Severance.
Yeah, I forgot her character's name.
Here it's buried. But she's interesting because she's there, and she's also, like, gone now. It's like, I don't know. There's just something about this. I don't know. It's like she never reveals anything to Mark. Like, she doesn't really tell him anything, even though she's got all the information. It's like, it's okay, but like, when you want more info, like, I don't know. Even like Cobell, like, go in there again. You gotta think about this. Why would you tell Mark to go in there and finish Cold Harbor when you know his wife is going to be killed after that? If that's what you're suggesting, that is what she believed. So you're gonna finish Cold Harbor and then you go look for her. Just go look for her first. What's the
I
difference?
think the reason they wanted it to like solve it, like do Cold Harbor first, is because she knew that there would be like theatrics, and then he would have
Fanfare,
the opportunity to actually
No
get out
offense,
of
though,
that
they've been
situation.
wandering around all season, dude.
Yeah,
All season.
touche.
Like it's hard to wander around when you're at 97%, perhaps, but or 90,
Yeah.
whatever. He was at 96% or something. So that's
Something like
fair.
that. So
Yeah, I
the
guess.
character, the other doctor's name is Asal Ragabi,
Yeah,
played by
Ragabi.
Karen Aldridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like Cobell's illumined through and through. It's like, yeah, she is, because she was literally grown up through it, and it's like that's what we learn, and it's interesting. But she's against it because they stole her plans, but she stole her plans, and she's only kind of getting upset about that now. She's kind of in a bad spot on the severed floor. She's just the manager of the severed floor. Shouldn't she be like in charge? It's like, shouldn't she be the one doing the experiment in the actual? She must have done something else that made them upset with her. Mm-hmm. Is there a chance they didn't plan out how Cobell's story was going to go, and she wasn't actually the one who made the plans initially, like stolen by James? Because they stole them by James. Like James stole the plans from her, right? Yeah. Right. So maybe what happened was they just designed this season. They didn't actually plan that in the first season. They're pulling a Rise of Skywalker. I don't know. Like, I guess it's The Last Jedi too, because it's the same shit, right? It would be more like The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi is great, but they're making it up as they go along. Like, it's cool to make it up as you go along, but you got to think about it, because it's eventually you're going to paint yourself into a corner and it's going to get bad. That is just the nature of it. And so yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, like for next season, what's going to happen is, I guess, unless there's more you had notes there about various things.
I guess just a couple quick notes.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Before we go. The scene in the finale again, where Mark has Drummond and they go on the elevator and he's holding the gun up to his neck.
Oh, unbelievable. Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'm about to turn, you like, don't try anything. And then he turns into regular, like Mark Scout, and pulls the trigger and then just shoots Drummond, and he's bleeding out like that. That's crazy. And Mark is like freaking out. Blood's pouring over him. Like, yeah. Oh, brilliant. Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. But again, that's plot convenience. You realize, right?
You think so?
There's no other way that could have happened. If he didn't do that, Drummond would have literally turned on him instantly, because you take the shock of it in that second, and you take the gun away, because you're like, what am I holding a gun? Who are you? Mm-hmm. That's it. It's over. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Like, you're Mark. You didn't do any. You haven't hurt a fly. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. Your mind would not be thinking, I just got into a fight. The adrenaline's kicking for that Mark. The other Mark doesn't have, he may have adrenaline, but he's not going to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If he didn't shoot him,
yeah,
that guy's a beef. That guy's crazy. When he punched him in the face,
yeah,
unbelievable. When he punched him in the face, I almost wish he wasn't dead, because he's such an interesting character. I want to know why he attacked him. I don't know why, still to this moment, why would he choke him out? That's why I think it's like plot convenience there too. Is there a reason, or they just thought, let's make an exciting scene?
Yeah, my thought process is that Marcus served his purpose. He finished Cold Harbor. He's not needed, and then the corporation's so powerful that they can just kind of do whatever.
I wrote that in my notes.
That's my understanding, but yeah.
100%. I wrote what you said in my notes, but then the question was, is it? Because it's like, is it though? Because even if you get Gemma out, then they're not going to have any repercussions. They're going to be lawyered up to hell. You won't matter. It won't matter. Like, no, we were saving her. She was here on her own volition. And then you can just freaking, she's got a mind chip. You can just make her look like she's got dementia. Like, there's nothing there's not even a worry if she does get out, because you just make her look like she's forgotten everything. Because you can just click a switch and go from there. I don't know. It just feels like they just ran out of, like, even Mark, you can just completely, you could just make him severed again. Make him go, while he's in the building, go down to the bottom of the severed floor and make him have a severance for not remembering both Marks. And then just say, goodbye, have a nice life, you're fired. And then he's never can come back into the building again, because his Cold Harbor's over. And maybe that's the theory for next season. That's what I would do if I was Lumen.
Yeah. And then one of my last notes as well is when Jaime Egan comes in onto the severed floor and meets Heliar and says, like, I used to see Kier in Helena. It's like, but I stopped, and now, like, I see it in you. And I just, I love that when he shows up and Heli, like, turns around and literally all she says is like, what the fuck? Like, that's kind of what I was referring to, is just this show is so weird and over the top, but people have such honest reactions. And I think Helly in particular has the most honest reactions consistently. Her kind
It's
of like,
grounded. Yeah, that's a grounded part of it.
And then also after James says all that stuff, I think she says like, "You're so fucking weird," like something like that. And I don't know. I really love that as well.
This is an interesting thing too, but I wonder how much thought was put into it on the writing. Like, I believe that a lot of like my childhood and who I am today is because of nurture, not nature. I don't believe my genetics has made my personality. So the question of like, you don't remember who you are, you don't remember even more states than Delaware, and you don't even know that isn't necessarily a state. So they're like going through the different places, like Equator is like a big building. Like that's cool, but if you don't remember that type of thing, it's interesting. Like, who are you really though? And like, weren't you raised by this crazy family? Like the Egan seem insane. So wouldn't you be a kind of insane as well? That I guess maybe speaks to the fact that she's not like Helena Egan's maybe a really normal person on the outside. Like she's actually much more normal. James doesn't like her though. Like James doesn't like her, as admitted by him. He said he doesn't love her at all. It's his daughter. And that's such an interesting aspect. And like, it seems like when she goes to breakfast at that like very like barren house that they live in, and he's like, "I would eat it raw," or whatever he says about the eggs. It's like, okay, good for you. It's just a strange breakfast conversation, but it's like, it kind of, maybe that's why she's a normal person on the outside. It's a strange on the inside, I guess, because she's kind of forced to be. It's strange though, if you were like brought up in a billionaire's household, and this guy's a psychopath, clearly, wouldn't you kind of have, even if you didn't become a psychopath, you became like, you wanted to get out of it, you would still be influenced a little bit. Then nurture would affect your innie, right? Isn't that what you would think? Or maybe you believe more in nature. I believe more in nurture is really what made me, as opposed to like, nature did.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like the innies are the person's nature, and they haven't been affected yet by nurture. And then their outies is their life because of nurture. That's the way I took it. And like their innies are not necessarily children. Like Mark, I feel like in particular, like Mark S is more childlike than Mark Scout, because he hasn't dealt with all the traumas and everything. But maybe that's how Mark Scout was before, right? As a kid, he was happy, he was go lucky, right? So it's the innies are the person by nature, since they weren't nurtured to become who they are on the outside.
It can't quite be like that though, because the child thing is interesting. Like that's a cool way to look at it, because if they were like a children are innocent, so there's that aspect of innocence. And actually Ben Stiller talked about that in, I don't know if you've watched the end of the episodes where they talked about the episode. There's like a little snippet at the end of each episode where Dan Erickson and Ben Stiller and various other directors or the actors talk about their roles and what happens in the show. And like Ben Stiller talked about, I think it was episode 1, that the end of episode 1, they had the snippet after the credits, and he talked about how the first season was kind of like it's like childhood and like being born into this world, this new world. And this season 2 is kind of like going through becoming like a teenager and like learning like what you know, what it is to love and things like that. And so that's what he was kind of equated it to. So it's interesting. The child thing is interesting, but they know how to speak English. They have knowledge. You know what I mean? Like they did. And the way you were taught to speak and the way you were taught to do certain things, to eat and to you know what I mean? It does influence who you are. Like if you were a person, I don't know what your thought is on like when you eat your food and watching somebody in your break room, like literally chewing with their mouth open. But if you were taught to chew with your mouth open, you'd probably chew with your mouth open as an innie. That's what I think you would, because you were taught your whole life that it becomes such instinctual nature, like speaking English, that you would end up doing that. So like certain things you would have to carry over. That's kind of my thought. I mean, it's obviously all theoretical because this can't happen, but their technology that they created is unbelievable. Good for Patricia Arquette, you know?
Yeah, amazing. She's look at what drugs can do for you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it's interesting. It's really neat. I don't know. Again, really cool. I just hope that they have I gotta see some answers and less invitations for questions. I'm hoping that they've got like, I just feel like it's a reset next season. It's just gonna reset it, and it's gonna be so frustrating. Wouldn't that frustrate you? Like where is she? Oh, she's gone. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna make you go on another severed floor. Now you're dealing with goats, and then they just put them on another severed floor. Or is Mark on the outside is like, oh man, maybe they're gonna be like 6 months. Or maybe they'll do a time jump. They could do a time jump. Be like 6 months later, he's like Mark's all depressed because he doesn't get his wife because they just captured her instantly.
Or maybe another fake time jump. We didn't even talk about that. How season 2 starts, and it's like, oh, it's been 2 months later, and then the reveal by the end of the episode, it's only been like 3 days. Or something like that.
No time at all. And they have that like article that claims that they were like heroes on the outside. I had that I think I was another one of the questions I wrote down here is like, what if I don't know where it is. I think it was like, what if I was told that my Audi was a hero on the outside? Mm-hmm. It's like, what would happen? Like that's that's an interesting concept too. But even like the goats, like why you have the goats people because you sacrifice goats because of this cult? Is it all for like the sake of this religion? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, and it's also like weird. Like I feel like it's almost like, are they? Because he says something about the soul or whatever. I'm like, are you guys trying to, like, are you putting people's innies in other bodies? Like, is this going to be like almost like a body swap situation? That's almost like kind of what I took from it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm reading a little bit too into it.
That would be neat, wouldn't it? But then we've got nothing to suggest that. Like, what's the goat have to do with it? But wouldn't that be neat if they're? That's what I thought. Maybe they were learning with Cold Harbor. They were gonna like try to make her a clean slate and then implant memories of another person and make them. That's a good reason to do that. Bring Kier back to life. Like the theory. That's my theory. I'm gonna just say it. It's my going theory now. I just came up with it. Kier is dead, but obviously Kier is like Jesus for them. They were freaking obsessed with the guy. So they somehow have Kier's memories implanted. I don't know how they would do that though, because he's been dead for 100 years. I don't know if that's something even possible. So if he was dead for 100 years, they bring Kier back to life. But how would you do that? You would have to have imprinted. It'd be insane. You also wouldn't imprint it on like Deitch and Lackman's character. They look nothing alike.
She's also not a white person. And it goes to show that they're very racist.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
what is your theory about why freaking Mr. Drummond would try to kill Mark? So you just think because he's done with him, but you don't think that there's any consequences? Then there's no way to defeat them. Then isn't that kind of the problem with that kind of plot point? Because then it's over. Even if you get her out, what are you going to do? Could you move anywhere? Does Lumen exist in every continent? Does it exist in every country? What country are they even in? They never answered anything. Are they?
I guess they could be in Canada.
Like, that's the thing. I don't know. These are the questions I keep asking, and I want them to be answered because they invited me to ask them because of the way the police seems to work. Mm-hmm. And like they want, I don't know. It's pretty strange. Like it's a really put together season of television. Mm-hmm. But when you start really breaking it down, eventually you don't want it to be hokey. I want it to be satisfying. I want the conclusion to be like the Breaking Bad ending. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking for. Like a finale, like a series finale that is truly breathtaking. Like this season finale was so good. But you got to be careful because if you don't have a plan, that will never fly. Imagine that was a series finale. Imagine.
Oh, dude. Oh my God. I don't even want to think about that.
But that's kind of what I was thinking about, like too. Like I'm waiting 2 years maybe for the next season. It's like that's cool. What if it got canceled? That would be so frustrating because we learned then nothing by the end of it. So that's yeah. Sorry, do you have any more notes before we?
Not about season 2, really. I think we covered most of it. There might be a couple things. I do love the line, like, Heliar was never cruel. That I think stood out, like where Irving is the person that figures out that Helly is Helena. I do love that line. But yeah, that's really the main stuff. I guess like my theory for the next season, I'm very curious, but I think they're not going to leave the severed floor. I think Mark, Helly...
Captured?
Yeah, not captured, that they are taking control of the severed floor. They have the marching band, and they're like, we're staying here. We want our lives. We're going to figure out a way to be able to leave as our innies and live our life. And I think... in season 1, there's that picture they find where the people are like murdering each other.
Yeah, it's fake.
And the theory is that, oh no, it's like MDR fights the other departments. But I don't think that is a prophecy for that. I think it's a prophecy about it's the innies versus the outies. The outies are going to try to bring them back out, and there's going to be a war that happens on the severed floor.
Both pictures are of the other side, and they have the lanyard for the other side, and they're fighting each other. They just made those pictures specifically so that they can make them have animosity for the other departments. So that mystery was solved. Yeah. The mystery was solved, so I don't think that one. Unless you're talking about a different picture.
No, it is that picture. I just feel like that's foreshadowing to what's to come. Like there is going to be a war, but it's not the war between departments.
I don't think it was that.
It's going to be innies versus the outies.
Yeah, I think that would be a mite too far on how thought out they were, because because they're wearing the lanyards, they literally planned it. They were so meticulous, Lumen was, to try to manipulate them into fighting thinking that they would fight each other, that was kind of even the goat people had their own version of them. What did they say? They said they ate their own butt, or they didn't have they had 2 butts or something like that. No, they had a
belly button, wasn't it? Wasn't it something about the belly
something
button?
Like that. That they were told lies about them too, so they would never go visit the other side.
Yeah.
It's funny, like you would think that a marching band department would be very loud and easy to find.
Soundproof rooms, dude.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Dawn asked the question like, oh, wait, are these guys all severed? And my theory was that they were contracted to come in there as a marching band, because you don't really need a marching band. So you just literally, because you're going to sever all these people and make them do a marching band. I thought, no, they just came in and they were on contract. Because no, they wouldn't be that weird. You'd just be told them, oh, yeah, it's just like a weird theater production, and we're just having you come into this office for a day and then leaving. But no, they were all severed. I was like, okay. That's so crazy. So like, that's a lot of people that are severed then on that floor. It's like, it's again, they're not really asking those questions or asking us to ask the questions about what people think about it on the outside, like they did with season 1. Remember that dinner party? What a question that was such an interesting thing and how controversial it was. And they kind of just like glanced over that, like that doesn't even matter anymore. Like we don't care about the outside. So I really, really, really think like, even if they're never going to leave, like I hope that we see, because we usually follow Mark. I'm hoping we follow like Devin. I hope we follow Rickon. I want to see what's going on. I want to see the normal people who aren't messed up, like who aren't like dealing with this so specifically. Because once Mark started to get reintegrated, things just never were the same anymore. I don't think we have a good pedestal, like a good ground to stand on enough to make it feel like we can continue this potentially forever and only follow Mark, when I don't really know what the world is like. And that's kind of my moral of the story. And that's kind of where I find myself for this season and how I liked it. But again, great season. And if you take each episode separately, you're like, wow, this season on a sum of its parts perspective is great. But if you're going to think about the future, that's where I get scared. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's
awesome.
That's cool, man. That's it, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure we missed a bunch of stuff and didn't even touch on a lot of things because there's so much that happened. But I'm feeling pretty satisfied about what we talked about. I'm sure I'm going to think of something random and be like, "Fuck, I should have mentioned that." But
there was just on a technical level as well. Like again, because the technical level of their show is just so good, and that's probably the best thing about it. Like the technical on like writing specifics, I guess, and like the set design and the costumes, all that stuff. But the cinematography and like the fact that it's not CG when Jessica Lee Gagne, she's got like basically, do you remember in episode, I think it was the Gemma episode, but they have like that cable shot where they go through the floor. Mm-hmm. That's not CG. That's so crazy. They talked about it in that after the episode little blurb. And apparently they shot that, and they shot it with like I don't know if they had like a dolly that went along a wire or something to shoot it up through the floor. They actually shot it through I'm like, what are you talking about? Apparently it was like a side project that took like many shoots to get done. It was like the first shot of the show where they're running down the hallways, and they have like, there's very little that is not real, like him running down the hallways, but there is a moment where he's running down a treadmill. They have him like one part that's impossible to have him running and following him at the same time. So they had him running down on a treadmill and then like CG the background. But for the most of it, it's all him running, and they somehow have him turning massively and like following him like perfectly. It's crazy what they're able to do. That's just like, that's a dream to do that, I feel like. And I wonder, because that shoot, they kept doing that over and over again for months from what I read. Like they kept trying to get that right. The running sequence, it's like, wow, like crazy. Like that's where your money went. If you're Apple, you can spend the money on that. But yeah, again, it's just the plot that I'm scared. I'm scared, Adrian. I want it to be good by the end of it. But I gotta say, when I saw the end of this that episode, I had to say, the thing I was left with was disappointment, actually.
Oh, damn.
More than any other feeling. Because the way it ended, if it didn't end like that, I would have been like, this is one of the greatest episodes ever. And it is still one of the greatest episodes. It's so good. It's just, when you think about it on a whole, I'm like, could this be the last good episode? Like, do they have it in them in 2 years when the next season opens? Do they have it in them to continue this and make it cohesive with the rest of what they breadcrumbed out? And that's the question that I leave you and the audience with here today. Yeah.
I think they will. I'm going to be optimistic. I think they're going to get it, and I think it's going to be awesome, and I hope it continues to be great, and I think it will be. That's what I'm going to leave it. I love this season. I thought it was fantastic. I don't think you necessarily convinced me that it's not as good as the first season. I still really liked it, but yeah, you put up some interesting questions, man, and I enjoyed talking about this with you.
Same here. I appreciate the way you were thinking about it throughout the season. You wrote like a lot of great notes that got brought up through this. So I appreciate that. All right. Well, cool. So Adrian, now, as is customary, it is time now to score Severance season 2.
Yeah.
Severance season 2. It's time to score it in our, as you called it, your name, not mine, Rotten Potatoes score.
Yes.
So I guess I'll ask you first. What is your score for Severance season 2?
Well, actually, Simon, because I don't know, mine might be a little obvious. I was pretty hot on this season. I want to hear your score, because you were a little bit. You're not negative, obviously. You obviously clearly liked it, but you had more criticisms than I. So please tell me your score. I'm curious.
So my score, Adrian, might surprise you. It might surprise you. It's actually, despite all of my, the tentative nature of the way I was speaking, I actually review it as a 4.5 out of 5.
Oh.
Does that surprise you?
Good. No, that was actually exactly what I was, would have been my guess, that you were going to review it. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I guess my closing thoughts on this is that it kind of reminds me of when I first came out of the theater once I saw Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. I feel like that's the best way to describe my review of this TV show season. Because when I came out of Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, I was like, wow, that was incredible. But what are they going to do from here? That was basically my feedback. Like, how do they top this? But how do they also answer all the questions that they've now introduced? And so that's the big question. But on a technical level, what a masterpiece, especially. But
wonderful.
Even not even just technical. We talked obviously about the directing and the cinematography and all of that stuff, the lighting design, the production design, the costumes, really crazy, really good.
Yeah.
But I also think the writing's incredible too. It's just they introduced a lot of questions. Can they satisfyingly pick up with season 3 and make it beautiful, and just as beautiful as season 2? So it's a 4.5 out of 5. What is your score, sir?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess just to go off your point there, let's hope that it's not a Rise of Skywalker situation with season 3. Because the questions you have posed about The Last Jedi, the answer was they don't. They don't answer any of those questions. So I'm really hoping.
Right.
I'm really hoping.
In The Rise of Skywalker, they completely were not capable of making something better. That was our issue. I know a lot of people don't like The Last Jedi, but phooey to them. We like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
I do. And I think Rise of Skywalker is a bad movie, personally. But
it's horrible.
Yeah, that's neither here or there. My friend. And so for me, the score for Severance season 2, I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 5. So as a group, we have a 10 out of 10 score. That's our first 100% on what?
That's unacceptable. You can't do that. You can't have more than 5 apples out of 5. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. All right,
you can grow one.
Or potatoes, I guess, in this case. Why am I referencing apples now?
Yeah, I have no idea why you would say that.
I don't know. No. You gave it a 5, though. Do you legitimately give it a 5 out of 5?
No, I would give it a 3, actually. If I can't do a 5.5, I'm giving it a 3. There's no
not that great. It's just good. Kidding. It's just fine.
It is a 5 out of 5 for me. I think this was a spectacular season of television. I loved it. Again, I think I liked it even more than the first season. And I think the first season's a 5 out of 5 as well. So I would be a fool not to give this a 5 out of 5 for me specifically. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that's it. That wraps up this episode. This a closer look for Severance season 2. Adrian, I appreciate you talking to me today. As I'm sure we said already at some point. Mm-hmm. But anyway, regardless of that, thank you for talking to me. And this was a fun conversation. And can't wait for Severance season 3. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait either. But unfortunately, we have to. So.
Yes. My name is Simon Eady.
And I'm Adrian Pinter.
And this has been a closer look for Severance season 2. Goodbye.
Take care and goodbye.